Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to build muscle if you only have limited time to work out during the week. Now, in an ideal world, we'd all have unlimited time to work out, but in reality, if you're someone who has a stressful job or a wife and kids, then you're going to have to find a way to fit your workouts into your weekly schedule. For myself, I train grappling 6 days a week, and then I also work as a coach. So I only get to work out on Tuesday and Thursday afternoon for 60 to maybe 75 minutes. So I need to make sure that I'm using that time efficiently, because one factor that is going to influence how much muscle your training is going to build is how much volume you're doing, with volume being measured as how many hard sets per muscle group per week you are doing. The current recommendation in the literature is to do about 10 to 20 hard sets per muscle group per week. But as always with research, this is only an average number, and you might be someone who would benefit from doing even higher volumes than that. Now you could say, well, I'm just going to rest a lot shorter in between sets, but research has clearly shown that shorter rest periods are less effective for building muscle because they negatively impact your subsequent sets. So we need to find strategies to make sure that we're still keeping the qualities of the sets high, but still finding a way to pack more volume into less time. Now, the first strategy that I would suggest is to use mainly compound multi-joint exercises. So something like presses, rows, squats, deadlift variations, or pull-down variations. And these are all exercises that use multiple muscle groups at once. So for instance, if you're doing an isolation exercise like a barbell curl, then you're only performing elbow flexion. So you're only bending and straightening your arm. Whereas if you would do something like a chin-up, for instance, you would be also performing elbow flexion and training your biceps as well. But you would also be doing shoulder adduction and scapular depression, as well as using your core to isometrically stabilize your spine. So you're not just training your biceps, but you're also training huge parts of your back and also your core. In this way, you're able to train multiple muscle groups at once and use your time a lot more efficiently than if you would just be doing isolation exercises. Now, the next strategy that you could use is doing supersets, which basically means you do 2 exercises back to back with either no rest or minimal rest in between. The traditional way of doing this is doing a superset for the same muscle group. So for instance, you would do a bench press first, followed by something like a cable fly. However, this is probably not the best way to do things, as research has shown that this negatively impacts your training performance, and this will impact how much muscle you will build over time. Now, a better way of doing things would to be doing an antagonist superset, where you're performing 2 opposite movements back to back. For instance, you would maybe start with something like a dumbbell bench press, and then go straight into something like a machine row. So while your chest and your triceps are resting, you're using your back and your biceps, and vice versa. I'd still suggest that you rest a little bit in between both exercises. So maybe do the dumbbell bench press, rest 30 seconds, do the row, rest another 30 seconds and go back to bench press. But as you can see, you're still able to pack a lot more volume into a shorter amount of time that way than if you were performing straight sets. Another great way of doing a superset would be to do 2 exercises that don't have any overlap at all. So for instance, doing a lower body exercise, like maybe a squat, and then following it by doing an upper body exercise, like maybe a dumbbell side raise. So again, while one of the muscle groups are resting, the others are able to train, and vice versa. Just a word of caution on this, you do have to be in good shape to train like this, just because it's a lot more intense for your cardiovascular system than the regular training of doing one exercise, resting for 2 to 5 minutes, and then doing another set. And it can also be a little bit tricky if you're working out in a very busy public gym. But if you have the option to do so, then I would definitely recommend it. Now, the next strategy is called a drop set. In a drop set, you pick a weight where you can do something between 8 and 15 repetitions. And then as soon as you hit failure, you would reduce the weight by something like 20% and then go again until you hit failure. You could even do a triple drop where again you would reduce the weight and do another set to failure. And while this is probably not going to be quite as effective as doing 3 straight sets, it's still a great way to increase your volume in a short amount of time. I like doing this on isolation exercises, so something like a tricep pushdown or a bicep curl would be great for doing something like a drop set. Next would be a strategy called myo-reps, which is similar to a drop set, and it was made popular by Borge Fagerli. I Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So what you're doing here is you would pick a weight that you can do anywhere between 8 and 15 repetitions with, and you would go close to failure. He recommends going to a 9 RPE, so having 1 repetition left after the set. And after that, you would rest somewhere between 5 and 15 seconds, and then you would go again. You would probably get another 2 to 5 repetitions. You would rest again, 5 to 15 seconds, and then do another set, and so on and so forth. Again, I don't think it's probably quite as effective as doing straight sets, but research has shown it to be an effective training tool, and you can definitely get more volume in a shorter amount of time. This is a strategy that I definitely wouldn't use with a barbell compound exercise, but it can be a great way of getting more work in on machine exercises or isolation exercises. So this ties in to the next point, which is to use more machines in your training. Now, machines do have a couple of advantages if you're short on time. You don't have to do quite as many warm-up sets as you would if you're doing a barbell exercise. So for instance, if you're doing a barbell back squat and you're pretty strong, then you'll probably need somewhere between 3 to maybe even 6 warm-up sets. Whereas if you're doing something like a leg press, you can probably get away with doing 1 to 2 warm-up sets and then go straight into your working sets. Another advantage of machines over free weights is that you mostly don't have to set up anything, maybe just adjust the seat height. Whereas with free weights, you definitely take a lot longer to set up the equipment. And like I said before, machines are a lot more useful when doing myo reps or drop sets. I still think that you should include free weights into your training, but if you're very short on time, then bias most of your training to machines over free weights. Lastly, it's important to remember that you can still make progress on lower volumes. In fact, some people might even make more progress if they're doing lower volumes than if they do the recommended 10 to 20 sets per week. And even in that paper that suggests doing 10 to 20 sets, it was shown that doing 5 to 9 sets per week and even as little as 1 to 4 sets a week was still effective at growing muscle. Of course, this is going to be very individual. So if you're someone who has a very high level of training experience and is pretty close to his genetic ceiling, you probably do need to do a little bit more volume. But if you're just someone who likes to work out, wants to look good, wants to stay fit, or works out to improve his sport performance like I do, then you're probably going to be fine if you do a little bit less volume. I just make sure that you keep the quality of every set high. So make sure that you do a full range of motion, make sure that you go pretty close to failure on each set, and then you'll probably be fine. If you want to learn more about this topic, then there's a great article by Iverson and colleagues called No Time to Lift, Designing Time-Efficient Training Programs for Strength and Hypertrophy, where they explain the strategies that I discussed in this video. And if you want to see how some of those techniques can be used in practice, then be sure to check out my video where I explain how I set up my own training program. So that's it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.